Okay, oh, well, great. Well, I took some time to think about what are some lessons, and I think about teenage Bridget Williams, and she knew what she really loved, but I think society tend to tell her that pursuing those dreams and those strengths wouldn't get her anywhere. So instead, she went off in the route and did law. And that was fine, but it really wasn't her passion. She really wanted to exercise her creativity and do something she really, really, really loved. And I would have told younger Bridget, because this is something that I wrote in my resignation letter, when I left the law firm, when I finally plucked up the courage to start my own social enterprise, I would have told her a quote from Confucius, which is a Chinese philosopher. And the quote is, "They say you have two lives, and the second one starts when you realize you only have one. So start living that second life." And that is something that didn't really hit me until I was probably in my early 20s, which is a good time still. I mean, it's not too late to figure that one out. But I would have told younger Bridget, you've got all of these strengths, you love all of these things around creativity, you should pursue them. Like, if you just work on those strengths, finances will fall naturally if you are particularly good at them. And and just to remember that you've got this one precious life, so to do all you can with it, and to recognize this privilege that you have, and to act on it to help others. So that's something that I would have definitely have told her. The other thing I would have said is, and this is sort of feeding into the experience that I've done through Global Shapers and through starting Beat and Proceed. But the other thing I would have told her is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So I learned quite quickly, I sort of had this unashamable confidence, which I've always had as a child. And I think a big part of that is because I'm a twin. So me and my twin sister were always sort of fighting for the attention of the other. And I would say that there's this real thing about just being afraid of rejection, but you have to get over that really quickly, because you never know where it will take you if you simply ask someone, hey, can I have this opportunity? Or, I really love what you do, I'd love to have coffee with you and find out more. Just the power of asking. And I think always, like 90% of the time, I've always had someone say, yeah, sure, I'd love to help. Rather than actually think, oh no, this is going to be a rejection, I'm not going to end up, this is going to be hugely embarrassing. But even if that is the case and they say no, they'll remember and that you asked, and they'll be, you kind of put them in a position where they feel like they owe you in future. So yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. The other thing I would have told my younger self is, small ideas have big impact. And this was something that I learned quite quickly with Beat and Proceed. So Beat and Proceed is a very simple idea. The idea is you bring people together to each make a 5 beaded necklace, bracelet, or keyring that represents your top 5 sustainable development goals that you want to work on. So the necklace serves as a conversation starter to help spread awareness about the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, all known as the SDGs, but it also serves as a physical reminder to your commitment. And I mean, the idea is very simple, but I was lucky enough to be invited to go to Japan and present Beat and Proceed in Osaka at one of the universities there. And I remember seeing all of these incredible, there was probably about, I think there were 6 of us, and all of them had these amazing ideas about, indoor sustainable farming and sustainable architecture, and these incredible, like, big solar batteries that look so beautiful and were super stylish. And I was just thinking, oh my goodness, I do not deserve to be here. And I walk on up to the stage and I tell my story about my beads. And I just remember thinking, oh geez, I like, what am I doing here? Like everyone's ideas are amazing and complex, and there's so much, layers to them. And then here's my idea about beads and painting beads to raise awareness about these big issues. But the really beautiful thing is at the end, when everyone had stopped presenting and the audience got to talk to each of us, I didn't expect this, but they all sort of flocked to me and my beads. And that's when I realized it's because the story of Bead and Proceed didn't get lost in translation. It's a very simple, digestible idea that has a lot of impact. And so I think sometimes when you're young, you might think, oh, I've got an idea or I want to do something, but it seems too simple to have impact, or what's the, you might just think it's not going to move mountains, but actually sometimes it's those small ideas that have the biggest impact. So remember that.
But there's
Young
one
Bridget.
comment here that the issue is that if you're a fashionista, you're stuck with the same colors for 15 years until 2030, right? So
Yeah, well, the idea is when you do your necklace or you paint your bracelet or your key ring, you're taking time with 6 other people around you, at least 6 other people, to discuss what your top 5 are. So you actually take some real time to think about it, and it's that rich conversation that comes out when you're painting. I mean, ideally, we would like you to think hard about it so you make this commitment for the long term, but I mean, life does change and people change as well. So if you get to a point where
you're
you
not
go, oh,
offering you're not offering a tattoo service, right? If you had a tattoo parlor, that would be a different story.
exactly. I mean, you're going to change, but it is about channeling your focus so you can actually make some real impact in those SDGs and treating it as a way of real commitment. So when you walk out of a workshop, you go, right, these are my 5. This is my journey that I'm on until 2030. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. And how is that the reason why you got involved with Global Shapers? Or you already connected with them before?
It was. So that was one of the things that I put on my Global Shapers application. And then from doing, and then when I was, so we are in Christchurch. And so in New Zealand, there are 3 other hubs. There's a hub in New Zealand, which is a hub in Wellington, a hub in Auckland, and a hub in Christchurch, also known as Otatahi. And I am curator of the Christchurch hub. And it's an incredible group of members. We've got such diversity, rich diversity. And we are working on some really exciting projects. And the beautiful thing is the hub is made up of people who are doing very cool things already. So if we want to do a hub project, we kind of take the strengths of different hub members and sort of put this project together. And so it sort of has the collective force of global shapers. And this year it was such an incredible project that we ran. It was called the SDG Art Exhibition. So we had 17 New Zealand artists all create an artwork that represented one of the 17 SDGs. And each artwork was auctioned off, and a percentage of profits went to an SDG aligned charity. So it was a way of bringing sustainability and creativity together, to bring everyone from all corners of Christchurch to come together and understand the importance of the goals. And we launched on the 25th of September, which marks the official adoption of the SDGs. And this particular day, the 25th of September for 2020, is the start of what is known as the Decade of Action, because we have 10 years left to achieve these goals.
Yeah. So you're in the South Island. I mean, you believe in the gender equality? I suppose you're following all the procedures. So how many elves, dwarves, and hobbits do you have to have? Or only humans?
Oh, yeah, we definitely believe in gender equality. I mean, what is particularly special about Christchurch, the place where I live, is we had Kate Shepherd, and Kate Shepherd was actually the woman who really pursued the right for women to vote. So the right for women to vote, it was first happened in New Zealand, and it was Kate Shepherd, who was from Christchurch, who kickstarted it. So that's gender equality is something very important to us. And equality in general is one of my top 5 beads that I really care about too.
That's what I expected. And how is the export business going? The concept and like getting the idea out there, because it doesn't need to be related to your business. If other people even copying you, franchising somehow. You just want to get the message out there, right?
That is true, definitely. We want to get the message out there. I think the other important thing, though, is to get the message out there in a way that holds on to the integrity of the SDGs. So a big thing about Bead and Proceed is our beads are handmade from recycled pellets, and we partner with an organization called Silence, located in Calcutta, India. And Silence gives quality and decent and safe employment to adults who are deaf, mute, or blind, often a
Wonderful.
group marginalized in Indian society. And then our paint is eco-friendly. It's from the Natural Paint Company, and for every square meter of paint painted, they save a square meter of Amazon rainforest. So, the other thing, a big thing about Bead and Proceed is our model is 1-for-1. So for every kit purchase, another is donated to either a low decile school or a deserving community organization to live and breathe the 2030 agenda, which is to leave no one behind. So long as you're spreading the message in a way that isn't, it's aligned to the SDGs, then that's a big part of it as well.
Well, the thing I really liked about the project is that a teenager could have started this, right? So there's no
Yeah.
barriers to say, hey, let me get my toys, and that's my prototype, and you test it with friends and family, and all of a sudden, hey, this could become a
Yeah.
business. One of the things that I'm trying to motivate teenagers to do is to start nonprofit entities, and if they are successful, if there is some traction, try to figure out, could you have a social enterprise from that? Then if
Mm,
you are gaining traction, how could you monetize the nonprofit side? Uh,
yeah.
you continue doing the nonprofit, but then you have a parallel entity which generates revenue, and then you give parts of your profits to the nonprofit, right? So all of a sudden you have something that is full circle, and allows you to go further in your nonprofit vision. And you're doing something along those lines, like getting the message across and generating revenues that allow you to go further.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think you've hit something so crucial about Beat and Proceed. And that comes back to that small idea. It's very simple. And it's something that I think when, if you're a young person and you're passionate about something, you want to do something about what you care about, then whatever the idea is, there's no such thing as a crazy idea. There's no such thing as a simple idea or a small idea. You just never know where it's going to take you. And I would never have dreamed that beads would have taken me to Japan, to have allowed me to have met the Right Honourable Helen Clark, and to gift Bead and Proceed to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Like, it's unfathomable. So that's why I sort of say, yeah, it's those small ideas that you should really not knock down, because you'll never know how big they can go.
Yeah, and it's really great. It's almost like you lost your marbles. You found them again and have them hanging around your neck.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. 100%. 100%. But I think the other big thing is I wasn't living in accordance to my values or my strengths. I was a solicitor for about 3 years, thinking this is what I wanted to do because it's what my parents told me I should do. And you can, as a young person, there's a lot of social pressures at the moment. And especially around social media, there is so much pressure around perfectionism. And it's actually, there's also a lot of really big issues going on right now, COVID, climate, Black Lives Matter. Like, there are some massive systemic issues that we need to change. And at another level, it can also feel very heavy for young people and quite overwhelming. So I really wanted to introduce this concept of play and uplifting and, simple creativity to get people to sort of, just talk about these issues in a way that isn't so heavy. It allows you to, obviously painting has always had proven benefits around, flow, mental health benefits of distraction therapy. So there's a real science, behind the bead painting, but it also, at the end of the day, it's about making time for innovation and creativity, as creativity sparks creativity, and we're going to need innovative and creative solutions to solve some of these goals. But it's also just about having, a safe space to discuss these big ideas and to have fun with it, and to feel the sense of achievement when you've made your necklace or bracelet or keyring and you wear it with pride. And I think right now, especially for that younger generation, it's overwhelming. So something as simple and uplifting as this can actually be a great way to have these massive discussions.
Yeah, you give me lots of ideas. I was just going to mention that 3 years of corporate life is quite a short sentence. So the family tribe jury was lenient in your case. I had to do 8 years of management consulting. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what really kind of got me over the edge to the point where I had to try this and make this happen was when I got funding from the United Nations. And that kind of leads me to another lesson that I learned, which is if you have an idea, if you want to pursue and be, entrepreneurial, and you've got an idea, but you're worried about telling people because you don't want, them to steal the idea, I would definitely say it's always better to share, test your product to the market and tell people about it, because you never know where those connections will go. So for example, I told my friend about Beat and Proceed, and she happened to be at a networking event where someone from the United Nations was there, and she didn't really know much about the UN, but she knew that the SDGs and UN had some connection. So she just decided to tell them about Beat and Proceed, and they said, your friend needs to pitch to us for funding. We'd love to support her. So that was a really valuable lesson, which is, make sure you share your idea and tell people, because the other big thing is people don't invest in businesses, they invest in the person. So really value connections, network with those who you can, and grow those relationships, because you never know where they will take you.
how do you get funding from the UN? They're desperate for money themselves. And where did the funding come from?
Well, I have to say this is pre-COVID, so things have changed. But so my understanding is all states, and I think even cities, like big cities, have got United Nations Association branches. So the one that I pitched for was the United Nations Associated Branch Christchurch. So you can actually find out who your United Nations Association Trust is and connect with them in your local area.
And I suppose the grants are quite small, right? It's just as a Kickstarter amount of money.
Yeah, as a kickstart, I think it was like $3,000, but it was what I needed to give me the confidence that this is something worth investing in. And then things started to really grow when I started to get businesses approach me and say, hey, we want you to come and facilitate a workshop because we want to have a fun team building activity. And then I was invited. So obviously New Zealand, it's got North Island, South Island. South Island is the beautiful one where the Lord of the Rings was filmed, but in the North Island it is also very pretty, and there's an incredible island called Waiheke, and I believe it's Waiheke Island. Anyway, and they invited me up there for their partners retreat to run a workshop. So I was flown up there in a room with a bunch of corporate people to come together to paint beads. And it seems so silly, but actually, if people are too uncomfortable to be in a room to paint beads, how on earth are we ever going to solve these complex problems? So we need to have an open mind. We need to be brave enough to come together to get outside our comfort zones, because that's what it's going to take to solve these massive issues. But it was because I started to get approached by different businesses asking me to run these workshops that I also realized, whoa, what would this look like if I invested all my time into this? So I've been working full time on Beat and Proceed for about 1.5 years now. And yeah, it's been an incredible experience.
Oh, I have lots of ideas related to what you're doing, because I'm trying to encourage teenagers to become more entrepreneurial. And I recall when I was a teenager, growing up in Rio, of all places, almost like diametrically opposed to where you are right now, I got a box which is kits to make candles. and you
Mhm.
have those kits to make soap, right? And you can
Yep.
have the natural types of soaps, as in your beads could be scented as well. You could have cedar scent, and there are lots of options in terms of small, simple things that can be done. And all of them can be done by teenagers. I think there's nothing wrong with teenagers learning how to do amazing, those Eastern European style candles with the multicolored, and they get cut and transformed into beautiful shapes. They just need guidance. You need to receive a box by mail. COVID is not an issue at all with that. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if within the context of Wisdom Accelerator could create some sort of a product line that would generate donations for us to be able to hire staff to do the work you're doing, have more sessions, and better
Mm.
videos and so on. That could be linked to your business model. Maybe even have your beads as one of the products that people will be able to get. But not only one, having many of them, and all of them linked to the SDGs, even if not as a main topic, right? You very upfront, like the callers represent SDGs, and I'm fully supportive of that. In fact, I'm one of the United Nations experts on smart cities, and I've spoken to the UN a
Ah,
whole bunch of times. And
awesome.
so I'm the board member of a nonprofit that has ECOSOC standard, right? So the accreditation, and that's been the case for the last 5 years or so. So I think that, yeah, we could have a conversation about that and try to figure out if there's any way of packaging the work you do with drop shipping, blah blah, and then it's good for you and good to promote teenager entrepreneurship around the world.
That sounds amazing. I'd love that. I'd love that. Definitely. I mean, if I can just end on one more thing, I think a really big thing about Beat and Proceed, and it doesn't have to be this, but I really do think that right now the world is craving that tactile creativity. We live in quite a saturated data technology screen environment. And I think we have sort of lost that ability, or not ability, but we have parked that idea of playing with our hands, using our hands, getting messy, and just taking time for that raw creativity. And I think we need it more than ever. And during a time like COVID, we need to, it's sort of, I sort of see COVID as this massive storm, right? It's like this insane storm outside. So what do? We stay indoors and we think about what can we do and how can we maximize our potential and grow our awareness and grow in general. And so what are those indoor activities? And I see Beat and Proceed as being a really good one.
Yeah, it's kind of mental health as well. And I live in the countryside. I think my village has more sheep than the whole of New Zealand because they're everywhere.
Really?
Highly unlikely, but hey, we don't have the statistics. Let's say let's say we're even in the number of sheep.
We're even, yeah. Our sheep to people ratio has dropped. So, you might be right.
100 to 1 to what, 50 to 1 now?
I don't know what it is, but it's like we used to have double. We used to have like the amount of people was double, but that's gone. I don't know what the statistic is now, but
Yeah.
I mean we still have a lot of sheep.
Now in Mongolia, you have something like 3 or 4 horses per person, but no, they are only a few million. New Zealand has a bigger population. But anywho, I live in the countryside. It's a 300-year-old chalet, still close to the train station, so I can get to the capital of the country in 20 minutes, right? But the chalet used to be the bakery of the village. So technically, I live in an oven. So I'm always baking ideas.
I love it. Yeah. You're baking ideas away. That is so good. That's a beautiful metaphor. I think, yeah, I mean, I love a good metaphor. So for me, I'm definitely using this time in COVID, speaking more metaphors, and that's a good one.
Yeah, and then no, as you're living in the future, so maybe we can catch up over a call to talk about different ideas. I like the idea of teenagers doing candles because
Yeah.
it requires a certain level of responsibility because you are heating the elements, but you
Mhm.
can't really get badly burned making candles. You can probably make a big mess in your mom's carpet, but you probably won't execute you immediately.
Oh no. And speaking of metaphors, I think a candle has a beautiful symbol of like, be your light, right? Like, what can you do in this time of what some would say, a pretty dark time? Like, the light is sort of a beautiful symbol of hope, and what can you do to fuel that light within you? So I think there's a great metaphor there.
Yeah, no, there's another good one for candles that when a candle lights another, it doesn't lose its light, right? It's just sharing.
Yes,
So this
that's
is
another.
this is
Great.
so I think that we could brainstorm. I'll send you a bunch of ideas that may or may not be something that is of interest to you. But yeah, it does make a lot of sense to try to find some decent suppliers who take care about the employees or sourcing the right materials, and try to give them this path to allow teenagers to learn useful skills. Because when I was making candles as a teenager, it's not like I became a candle manufacturer. I just learned patience. I learned that you need to follow the steps, that you need to mix the ingredients in the right order, that there are certain things that will make it much more difficult, even though it's still feasible. There are better ways of doing that. So learn about efficiency. And the the other kits that we had was I don't even know how to say that in English, like a pyro engraving. Literally, this is the 70s, right? So
Yeah.
they they will send you a branding tool, as in literally
Mhm.
something that you could brand cattle with, and
Right.
a couple Brazil 1970s. No, welcome.
Yeah.
So you had all these different metal shapes, the letters and some symbols, the stars. You just plug that into the electrical system to have a branding device in your hand that it could use to brand your siblings or do whatever. So I do not think that this one will have too much of a future currently, but
Mm.
it's quite remarkable that like 40 years ago they were selling that, and people would have the stuff. And I also learned how to not burn myself using that
Yeah.
one from experience.
Yeah. Helpful life skills. Definitely. Definitely.
Well, fabulous. So congratulations on the work you're doing. One final question is that who inspires you? As in, I'm talking a lot about replacing role models with peer models. So who are the other people of your age? And it could be someone from the Shapers community, people
Mhm.
that are more or less your age range that you find truly inspiring, and why?
Oh gosh, it's such a hard question. I find a lot of the people in Global Shapers so inspiring. It would be so hard to pick just one. Um, and to
To being a
avoid,
politician.
yeah, it's a very political answer.
That's a
Um,
lawyer. So there, stump on it. The
well,
solicitor is rearing his ugly head.
I mean, I would say that there is someone that I really do get a lot of inspiration from, who always fills my cup and recharges me, is a global shaper. She is located in Auckland, and her name is called Struthi. She's in the Auckland hub, and Struthi is an incredible individual. She is just, those people that are on like a different level of frequency, like she is just that person that knows her true north, but is always reevaluating it and taking time to do the work internally so she can make as much impact as she can externally. And something that Struthi has recently told me that I have found to be really helpful this year is she was just explaining to me about how nature is a beautiful way. It's a beautiful tool to use for therapy. There are like nature teaches us a lot of lessons. And when we had our Global Shapers retreat in New Zealand, so we were lucky enough to all come together. We've been so lucky in New Zealand around this COVID situation, and a big thanks to that is due to our leadership, Jacinda Ardern, and obviously the collective power of everyone as well. But myself and so Struthi took us on a nature walk, and we looked around and we just took some time to be quiet, to be with ourselves, and ask essentially nature a question that we needed to hear. And we each sort of had to pick up something that was calling to us, and mine was like a leaf and someone else had pebbles. And anyway, it was just this really beautiful workshop that she ran that spoke to me about how yeah, nature has a lot of lessons, and if we listen, we can hear them, and the importance of being in nature as well. So she's definitely someone that I get so much inspiration from.
Yeah, it sounds like a very grounded person. So it's a common trait of New Zealanders, at least the ones that I know. That
Yeah,
seem to be very connected to nature and yet very advanced, and coming up with things like universal suffrage before anyone else, and allowing women to vote, which is was it 18 no 1903 1904, was super early, right? So more than 100
yeah.
years.
Yeah. There's been a lot of movements that have come from New Zealand, which I think we're very proud of that fact. And a lot of them have actually come from Christchurch. But we are this weird, quirky little country that we use this thing called the number 8 wire. And that's sort of like a saying that we say in New Zealand, which is we have this sense of ingenuity, because we are an island, we're isolated from a lot of the world. We have to use what we have, but we've always had this appreciation that we can't overuse. And I think that's a massive lesson that we're all learning now about sustainable development. And that's something that is my personal goal, which I really want to push Aotearoa New Zealand to be leaders in sustainable development, because it's something we live and breathe already, but it's just about articulating that message, and hopefully it can be done through Beat and Proceed.
Well, that's one path out of many. So there are many desirable futures, and it looks like you found one. So I just wish you all the best.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Marcelo. And yeah, we'll be in touch. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
See ya.